Very good evening to and welcome to Primetime News. I'm Sandro Ferdinando. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Granting concessions for electricity bills postponed. Another proposal to the cabinet next week. Sri Lanka Air Force to get 4 used helicopters. Central Bank of Sri Lanka further reduces policy interest rates to a historic low. Mangala Samaravira for the first time reveals his dreams of the presidency.
ඔබට ජනාධිපති සිහිනයක් නැහැ.
අපිට තියෙන ඕ හැම කෙනෙකුටම තියෙන. නමුත් ජනාධිපතිතුමා සිහිනයක් තිබුණ පළියට ඡන්දත් වැටෙන්න එපා.
Heavy rains reported. Be cautious about lightning.
First up in local news, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa attended several public rallies in various places in Colombo today. President received a warm welcome when he visited Crow Island in Matakulia. The people presented their problems to the president through letters. Afterwards, the president met with the residents of Hyde Park. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa also met with party supporters in Dematagoda. What concessions will the public get for utility bills amidst the COVID-19 pandemic? Although the matter had figured during the cabinet meeting, a decision in this regard has not been reached yet.
There were complaints about electricity bills for the period during which curfew was in effect due to COVID-19. Among the complaints were higher monthly bills and the difficulty in paying the bills for several months at once. Many people complained that they had received their electricity bill unfairly. A report on this matter has been submitted to the cabinet by Minister of Power Mahinda Amaravira this week. The report had recommended that concessions must be granted over the electricity bills issued from March to May. The report also recommends a 25% concession to households that have consumed up to 90 units. A 3-month moratorium to settle the bills and penalties must not be imposed over late payments. It adds power supply must not be disconnected under any circumstances.
The President, Prime Minister and the ministers put forward views to look into how much the bill has increased compared to the bills issued before March and to consider whether relief can be given to households that have consumed up to 120 units instead of 90. A request was made to put forward this package before the cabinet next week to increase the relief measures. The relief that has been mentioned in the papers today is not the final decision of the cabinet. The final decision would be reached within next week.
Relief was provided to several sectors amid the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the financial sector, including leasing companies, say that relief is to be issued as loans that pose a burden on the people instead of granting relief.
During the cabinet meeting, we discussed the problem relating to loans. Minister Vimal Weerawansa also raised these problems faced by industrialists while receiving loan concessions. Accordingly, a proposal was put forward to appoint an ombudsman for the people to address their problems relating to relief concerning the finance sector.
Meanwhile, the central bank has reduced the standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate by 1 percentage point each to 4.50% and 5.50%. During the monetary policy review press briefing today, the governor of the central bank urged financial institutions to reduce their lending rates in line with central bank directives.
Interest rates are on a declining trend. We urge financial institutions to expedite reducing their lending rates, with ideally no new lending taking place at double-digit interest rates. In the meantime, we continue to decisively deal with legacy issues in relation to certain financial companies in order to protect depositors. We expect the Sri Lankan economy to strongly rebound in the second half of the year. It was unfortunate to see the Sri Lankan economy being reclassified as a lower middle-income economy, although this has a mere symbolic value. We are confident that within a short period of time, this setback will be reversed and the symbolic upper middle-income level regained.
The governor also spoke about the incident where relief was announced last month after the president reprimanded the central bank officials. What exactly happened in the situation that was portrayed as a crisis was that the Monetary Board had convened meetings across 2 days to make the relevant decisions. However, the paper said this was done urgently after the president had told us to do so. We made this decision after 3 rounds of discussions. Unfortunately, that incident took place.
සාකච්ඡා වාර 3ක් පමණ ගිහිල්ලා තමයි මේක තීරණයට අපි අවිල්ලා ඉන්නේ. අනගාටුදායක විදියට මේ සිද්ධිය සිද්ධ වුණේ.
අපි අහන්න කැමති ඔබතුමාලගෙන් විමසුවේ නැද්ද ඊට පෙර ජනාධිපතිතුමා කියන්න කලින් ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඇහුවේ නැද්ද මේ ප්‍රමාදයක් තියෙනවා නම් කොතනද ප්‍රමාදය තියෙන්නේ?
අත වශයෙන් එහෙම
No, that wasn't inquired. If it had been inquired, that incident could have taken place in a different manner to what happened. After that, considering such problems that arose, I introduced a system in which I briefed the president and the prime minister before such discussions.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා සහ අගමැතිතුමා දැනුවත් කිරීමේ ක්‍රමයක් අපි දැන් පටන් අරගෙන තියෙනවා.
Deputy Governor Karuna Ratna explained as to why certain individuals were compelled to pay a higher loan installment following the debt moratorium that was granted in light with COVID-19 concessions.
Under the debt moratorium, we have given up to 6 months concession for the customers. So during that moratorium period, especially during this 6-month moratorium, customers are not required to pay either principal or the interest. But subsequently, they need to pay certain percentage for the bank because bank has already borrowed that money from the customers, and even during that period, that moratorium period, banks are required to pay interest for the customer. Eventually, what happens is, due to this 6-month period, the total loan tenor, the total loan period, get extended by 6 months. For that period, banks are not getting any interest. So therefore, central bank has allowed bank to charge up to 7% interest for that moratorium period.
Even this 7% interest is a maximum. And now, what we are going to see, market rates are coming down further. As a result, the customer can even go and negotiate even for that period current market rates, which are going to be lower than at the time of that we issued circular, that was the 7%.
The central bank said non-performing loans have risen to 5.6% from 5.1% during the first 3 months of 2020. The central bank had purchased treasury bills worth 232 billion rupees during this year. However, despite high levels of surplus liquidity available to banks, credit extended to the private sector contracted significantly in May of 2020 to 6.4. while net credit to the government and public sector increased to 32.1 and 31.1%. Senior Governor Veera Singha also expressed concerns regarding money printing.
The concern, if anyone wants to raise, is basically whether that would lead to high inflation and overheating situation. I don't think, because right now what we see, inflation is very well anchored at the below of our target range, and there's no evidence of any overheating of the economy. But if we're going to see any adverse impacts going forward, certainly we have a lot of instruments to absorb that liquidity anytime.
Various views are being expressed by politicians on whether the general public received the relief that they expected.
Are you consuming dal for 65 rupees? Is dal being sold at that rate? A kilo of dal is sold at prices between 170 and 200. Is a tin of salmon sold at 100 rupees? No. The price of tin fish is almost 300 rupees. A litre of coconut oil is about 500 rupees. A tax of rupees 50 was imposed on 1 kilo of sugar. Amidst all of this, one person asked me not to make such claims because the government gave rupees 5,000 to the people. I asked her as to how much did they receive. She said she received rupees 10,000. Then I said, although you receive rupees 10,000, rupees 20,000 will flow to the government from your household. Then she said it doesn't flow to the government and only the shop owners know where it goes to. Look at the way some people think.
Price of essential goods have gone up. That is true. But we have given the reasons for doing so to the people. Large-scale rice mill owners get a big share from stocks of rice. We will change that in the coming season. We will get more shares from the rice stocks. We are of the stance that no matter at what price you get rice, you cannot sell it for more than 85 rupees. Locally, we will encourage people to use alternatives for sugar, goods like jaggery and honey.
We promised 15% to people with fixed deposits, but 2 days ago we encountered a problem. What we say at present is providing that 15% should be continued further. We have reminded the promises that were broken. We have to pay back $2.3 billion from the foreign reserves we already have. If we have to pump money from our reserves, how can we protect the reserves?
Approximately there is a trade balance of $9 to $10 billion. How are we going to earn foreign exchange to settle this trade balance? Most of the previous governments, especially the last government, took foreign loans and spent them in installments. From that, the trade gap was widened. If we are to reduce that, we have to limit import only on essential items. This government has already taken that decision.
The critical question is how will people live when they lose their jobs, when the price of goods go up and the cost of living increases. People won't be able to live according to the way things are going at the moment. People will have to store their water tanks inside their houses. They will have to keep the bicycle inside the house. They will have to fix CCTV cameras around their house. If this economic crisis persists, people of this country will get used to thievery and corruption. Therefore, we urge the government to provide concessions to the people to stop this from happening.
Now the government has decided to provide a 12% concession to electricity bills, and we urge them to do so. But what happened to the water bills? The water bills have been sent to homes with red notices with 3 times the total amount the people should pay. Therefore, at least a 50% concession should be given to both the water and the electricity bill. When Sajith Premadasa becomes the Prime Minister, we will completely cut off the water and electricity bills of March and April that have come up to 100 units.
Report on the MCC agreement now lies at the hands of the cabinet ministers. Although ministers had been asked to put forward their views regarding the report, only a few of them had done so during this week's cabinet meeting. Views were expressed in this regard during today's cabinet media briefing.
MCC के संबंध ඔබතුමාලා ගේ observations මේ සතියේක ලබා දුන්නද ඒ ගැන ගත තීරණය මොකක්ද මතුමා?
Some ministries put forward their views in writing. I have sent my opinion to the Office of the Cabinet of Ministers. Many ministers shared the view that the report must be studied deeply. Therefore, the President gave them 2 weeks to submit their views in writing. Accordingly, they will submit their views after studying it within 2 weeks. There is no need to panic. We have shown our manifesto clearly to the country and the people. Gotabaya Rajapaksa's administration will not ink an agreement with any country if it violates the constitution, the country's laws, sovereignty, territorial integrity, or national economy. When dealing with matters concerning 2 states, we cannot act like grade 2 kids. When ruling a country, it is important to revisit the international agreements signed by the former government in a prudent and critical manner.
Although Minister Bandula Gunawardena expressed such views about the former government, former Finance Minister Mangala Samaravira points out that the present government has no obstacle to refuse the MCC agreement.
MCC givisuma අත්සංකරාද අමරිකානු ඩොලර් මිලියන 500ක් අවස්ථා කීපයකදී ගත්තද?
සත පහක් මේ වෙනකන්
America has not given us a single cent through the MCC agreement. I know about this grant so much because I was a part of this from the start. As the foreign minister of the Mahinda Rajapaksa government in 2006, it was the first request made for the grant that then went through State Secretary Condoleezza Rice, and discussions were held to obtain this grant. After the government led by Ranil Wickremesinghe fell in 2004, Mahinda Rajapaksa's government was desperate to get the money under this grant. It was Niwad Cabral who was appointed to liaise between the two governments. When they were preparing to sign the agreement between Mahinda Rajapaksa and George Bush, the white van culture began in this country. Parliamentarians like Ravi Raj were killed. 11 youth were kidnapped from Vellavatta and held for ransom and later murdered. Another group of people were killed in Trincomalee. With this change in the situation, America said that they cannot sign this agreement because one of the main preconditions for the agreement to be signed is that there has to be democracy in the country.
විශ්වාසයෙන් සහ වගකීමෙන් කියනවා සත පහක්වත් ගත්තේ නැහැ කියලා.
පහක්වත් අරගන්න නැහැ.
MCC ගිවිසුම වෙනුවෙන්.
ගිවිසුම මේක ඔය එක්ස්පර්ට්ලා කියලා ආපු ඔය ප්‍රතිගාමීන් තුන්දෙනා නිර්මාණය කරපු අසත්‍යයක්.
අවශ්‍ය නම් මේ MCC ගිවිසුම දැන් වුණා. එම ගිවිසුම අත්සන් නොකර ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරන්න හැකියාව තියෙනවද?
They definitely can refuse to sign it. They can also sign this agreement and say that they did it for the country. They can also not sign the agreement. The statement made that they need a two-thirds majority in parliament to do this is a lie.
The governing party is saying that they need a two-thirds majority in parliament to change the current constitution. Nama Rajapaksa spoke about this when he arrived at the House top to appear for a case at the Colombo High Court.
This is an opportunity to form a government that can create a constitution that protects the rights of the majority of this country as well as all communities in the country. We believe that just like a clear majority in the country gave a mandate to Gotabaya Rajapaksa, we will also be given a two-thirds majority to make these constitutional amendments.
Why do they need a two-thirds majority? Hiranika Premachandra of the Samagi Janapala shared these views in this regard. Basil Rajapaksa is waiting to be the next Prime Minister, but because of his dual citizenship, he has no way of entering Parliament. For the first time, he will appoint one of his agents as a nationalist candidate who will resign in about 2 years. After the two-thirds majority is obtained and the 19th Amendment is abolished, Basil Rajapaksa will ask his agent to leave and will take his place. His plan is to become Prime Minister. This is why they are struggling to secure a two-thirds majority.
Do you remember? The national carrier is more than just an airline. It is an ambassador that carries the name of our nation. The national airline of our country is being destroyed by those who make policy decisions. In 2013, preparations were made to purchase 10 Airbuses. It was recently revealed that a bribe of over $16 million had been solicited and 2 million of it had been collected over this transaction. This scam is now being tried in court. The government that rose to power in 2015 revealed the irregularities in this agreement, pointing out that an aircraft to transport VIPs was also among the commissioned Airbuses. This government that promised the people to call off the agreement instead paid a price of $98 million of taxpayers' money as compensation with nothing to show for it. The loss caused was well over 14 billion rupees. Both administrations were notorious in appointing their close relatives to the top brass of the national carrier and drained the institution of its massive profits, which converted into one of the biggest loss-making entities in the country. No matter the insurmountable evidence of these damning crimes, there is no sign that anyone has been brought before the law and prosecuted. Billions of rupees that should be used for the welfare of the people is being stolen and destroyed, while the cycle of people coming back to these enablers of these crimes in search of concessions continues. The people responsible for these are now asking the people for power in Parliament. We reveal these for the benefit of the people. Should we re-elect to Parliament the same people who destroyed these national assets? The decision rests in your hands. Think.
We want a clean Parliament. We want a clean government. Think before you vote.
The Cabinet of Minister has given the green light to purchase 4 helicopters for the Sri Lanka Air Force for training purposes. The Sri Lanka Air Force currently uses 2 helicopters manufactured in 1982 for training purposes. They will be replaced by the 4 used helicopters which will be procured in the future by calling competitive international tenders. During the press briefing to announce cabinet decisions today, it was also revealed that import expenditure during June had declined. For the first time since 1977, export income exceeded import expenditure in June this year. Export income in June increased to $1.02 billion. This highlights our country's ability to bounce back in such a short period after the COVID-19 outbreak. Sri Lanka's export sector performance in June has bounced back to normalcy. Following the import restrictions imposed by the government, import expenditure declined to $961 million in June. This is a cause for joy.
වියදම් ආනයන සීමා කිරීමෙන් පසු ඇතිවන තත්ත්වයක් යටතේ ජුනි මාසයේදී අපේ ආනයන වියදම ඇමරිකන් ඩොලර් මිලියන 961 දක්වා අඩු වෙලා තිබුණා. අපිට ඊටාම සතුටුදායක කාරණයක්.
Addressing a media briefing in Colonava, former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe said that the country is facing an economic crisis. There is a massive economic crisis in the country that didn't surface amidst the coronavirus pandemic. Do you remember that after the presidential election in November, they slashed taxes? By December, they couldn't earn revenue through taxes. In January, they said that they cannot pay the allowances of all state officers. This began in January, I think. Our export earnings have dropped by $7 or $8 billion. As the government could not do anything, they reduced imports. That prompted a shortage of raw materials in our industries. These problems haven't seen a solution. The government is silent. They don't have the right to rule. Although the president and the prime minister are from one party and one family, the economic problems of this country have not been resolved. There are only 2 parties that can rule the country. One is the SLPP. That has failed. The other is the United National Party. I don't want to speak further on the other gas cylinder. The government cannot sustain itself. It is running around seeking money. They have told 3 state banks to obtain loans from overseas. What do these banks place as a guarantee? Is it their assets? And what are their assets? Those are our deposits. Therefore, if the bank collapses by placing such a guarantee, it is we who will lose our money. If there is faith over the government, it must find funds. Even we did that, but we didn't tell banks to find the money for the government. Ultimately, state banks obtained our bond securities. That is the reverse side of the present. The country is going to fall. Therefore, the only thing that can be done is to increase the money at hand. Wildlife officers in Anuradhapura launched a special operation to search 3 elephants that had been injured after being knocked down by a train. Our reporter also joined this operation today.
3 elephants had collided with the Colombo-Trincomalee morning train near the Kalawava railway station today. The train had informed the nearest railway station regarding this incident, following which the information had been relayed to the Wildlife Department. As no elephants were seen at the location of the incident, a team including wildlife officers and doctors launched an operation to search for the 3 elephants. 1 elephant had been spotted 8 kilometers from the location of the incident, while the elephant was in the waters of the Kalawava. Wildlife officers travelled by boat to treat the elephant. Another elephant was spotted and treated inside the Kalawava National Park. The special operation to locate the third elephant is to be resumed tomorrow morning.
Still in local news, the Department of Meteorology issued a red alert today on possible lightning and thunder showers in several areas across the island.
The Department of Meteorology predicts thunder showers accompanied by severe lightning likely to occur at several places in eastern, north central, central, Uva, northwestern and Sabaragamu provinces. Heavy falls exceeding 100 millimeters are also likely in these areas. According to the department, there may be temporary localized strong winds during thunder showers. The Met Department, issuing a red alert, has requested the general public to take adequate precautions to minimize damages due to lightning.
It has been confirmed that 57 people from the Treatment and Rehabilitation Center in Kandakadu in Polonnaruwa have been tested positive for COVID-19. 56 of them are reported to be inmates.
The 57 individuals were discovered after 450 inmates and staff at the Treatment and Rehabilitation Center in Kandakadu were subject to PCR tests. Also, a counsellor at the Treatment and Rehabilitation Center has tested positive for COVID-19. She is a resident from Maravilla. 42 people from 10 families from Koswatta, Chilav, who associated the counsellor from the Rehabilitation Center, have been subject to self-quarantine. Testing inmates for the virus began after one person who was held at the Rehabilitation Center for 3 months tested positive for COVID-19 when he was moved to the Valikada prison earlier this week. According to health officials, more PCR tests are being carried out after the incident. However, not a single infected patient has been identified in the 350 PCR tests that were carried out at the Valikada prison, where the initial patient was discovered. With the discovery of 57 patients today, the total number of COVID-19 patients has increased to 2,151. 161 patients are currently receiving treatment under medical supervision. 12 patients have been discharged from hospitals upon recovery, and with that the total number of recovered patients have increased to 1,979.
අනෙකුත් 56 දෙනා කන්දකාඩු EPT ප්‍රතිකාර සහ පුනරුත්ථාපන මධ්‍යස්ථාන
56 are from the Treatment and Rehabilitation Center in Kandakadu. The disease cannot be transmitted from them to the community. We have made arrangements to bring back 8 advisors who were on leave. We have produced certain drug addicts to undergo rehabilitation. We will keep them in those facilities after conducting PCR tests. The Health Ministry is still carrying out an inquiry to determine whether the disease had been transmitted by them.
මේ කොවිඩ් ආසාදන උනාද යන්න මේ වනිටත් සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යාංශය යටතේ සමග පරීක්ෂණ කරගෙන යනවා.
The former government was more focused on reconciliation over national security, said a Sri Lankan Army intelligence officer in a startling revelation to the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the April 21, 2019 attacks. The officer said ex-secretaries of Defence Kapila Vaidyaratna and Hemasiri Fernando showed no regard to certain sensitive matters pertaining to national security. Newsfirst Muad Razik reports.
A startling revelation was made today. An army intelligence officer testifying before the commission made a revelation saying that in 2013 October he visited the now banned NTJ of the National Tawhid Jamaat's headquarters in Kathankudi and met its leader Zaharan Hashim regarding a thesis he was preparing for his higher educational activities.
The identity of the Army intelligence officer who testified at the Presidential Commission investigating the April 21st attacks was not revealed. Highlighting the fact he immediately understood Zaharan Hashim, the mastermind of the April 21st attacks, had extremist ideologies, the intelligence officer said he decided not to publish this report. He went on to note at times the former president would convene the National Security Council at his official residence, adding the then Prime Minister and IGP were informed not to attend those meetings by the then Secretary of Defence. He said he observed the National Security Council meeting would most often take place whenever the Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe was overseas. National security fell to a new low as a result of the political tug-of-war which was created following the 52-day government change, said the intelligence officer whose identity was kept a secret throughout the entirety of today's sessions. At the same time, IGP Pujit Jayasundara, who was sent on compulsory leave, as well as ex-Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando, visited the police unit of the Commission to provide statements.
Meanwhile, former Minister Rishad Bathiuddin arrived at the Criminal Investigation Department today and provided a statement for 9 hours. Rishad Bathiuddin was summoned to the CID to record a statement pertaining to the investigations on the April 21st attacks last year. Former Minister Mangala Samaravira expressed the following views on Newsline program hosted by News First.
ඇමතුමා දැන් දේශපාලනයෙන් සමු අරගෙනද ඉන්නේ?
මම පාර්ලිමේන්තු දේශපාලනයෙන් සමුගත්තා.
ඇයි ඔබ වගේ කෙනෙක් පාර්ලිමේන්තු දේශපාලනයෙන් සමු ගන්න තීන්දුව කළේ?
1980
I entered Parliament in 1989. When entering Parliament in our youth, we used to believe that we can even change the world. In an era in which the youth in the southern region were disappearing, I thought the Parliament would be a good place to speak on human rights. That is why in my first year in Parliament, we formed the Mothers Front with Mahinda Rajapaksa at my residence in Mathura. We served as co-conveners of the front and ventured into a 31-year-long journey. However, I realized that our country has not shown progress. We are still speaking about protecting human rights and democracy. If the Parliament is to become a place that can influence a change against a backdrop in which even the opposition is not raising these matters, I felt that I will enjoy more freedom outside Parliament to take part in this great struggle.
සටනට මුහුණ දෙන්න ලැබෙනවායි කියලා.
ඒ කියන්නේ ඔබතුමා විශ්වාස කරන්නේ නැද්ද පාර්ලිමේන්තුව තුලින් රටක ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයක් නිර්මාණය කරන්න පුළුවන් කියන එක?
We can raise questions on how long the Parliament has stood for democracy throughout several decades by looking at its current situation. Our small island has displayed backward growth after 72 years, although leaders were appointed. All of them came to power with a good motive. It can be D.S. Senanayaga or Gotabaya Rajapaksa. All of them assumed the highest office with a good motive, intending to serve the country. However, none of the leaders had the strength to confront the forces that surrounded that position.
The people believe that there were two leaders whom you worked to bring into power. One is Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga and the other is Mahinda Rajapaksa. Why weren't they able to create a good society?
That is because of the reason I said earlier. Out of the leaders of this country, Chandrika was the best one, regardless of the shortcomings. Although she tried to implement difficult measures, ultimately she did not receive the required strength to make changes. Mahinda Rajapaksa came to power hoping to do good things, but he was voted into power due to the war victory registered by the soldiers. Those who did not rule the country must also share the blame in this. I feel that it is the extremist forces in the country that must be held largely accountable for putting the country backwards. At the same time, the left movement also supported these activities. Although I am deeply disturbed over the current trend of politics, I have faith in the future of the country.
nomination දීලා අයින් උනේ මෙවර ඔබතුමා පරදී කියලා බයට කියලා.
Although I cannot prove it, I believe that if I had contested the election, I would have broken my record in the Mathura district. That is because I received 118,000 votes at the 2004 election.
සතරේ මහමැතිවරණයේදී මම මනාප 1,18,000ක් ගත්තා.
සමහරු කියනවා මංගල සමරවීර මැතිතුමා මෙවර ඡන්දය ඉල්ලීමෙන් ඉවත් වුණත් ආණ්ඩුව පිහිටවනකොට නම් පාර්ලිමේන්තුව ඇතුලේ ඉඳීවි කියලා.
ගොඩාක් වෙලා
I might have to go to Parliament only to finalize my pension matters.
ඇයි හිටපු ඇමතුමනි මෙච්චර එපා වුණේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව?
Since the introduction of the preferential voting system in 1989, the nature and structure of the Parliament changed. When politicians have to display great fight against their party members to win votes, a large amount of money is required by the candidates. We must depend on others to get this money. In the end, those with black money, including bookmakers and drug racketeers, like to see the candidate that they support being elected to protect their black money trade. This paves the way for a person to think as to why he must spend for another candidate if he can spend it for himself and enter Parliament. That is what is taking place now. This hallowed institution is transforming into an abode of thieves, drug racketeers and bookmakers. it would be apt to say that it is becoming an underworld entity.
විවර්තනය වෙමින් තියෙනවා. පාර්ලිමේන්තුව පාතාලකරණයට ලක් වෙලා කිව්වොත් මං හිතන්නේ ඒක නිවැරදි.
ඔබතුමා විශ්වාස කරනවද පොහොට්ටුවට 3න් 2ක් ගන්න පුළුවන්?
Definitely no. If they form a majority by joining with the other camp after the election, that is the end of democracy in the country.
අත් වශයෙන්ම මේ රටේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයේ අවසානයේ කියන එක පැහැදිලිවම මං කියන්නේ.
ඔබතුමාට හිතෙන්නේ නැද්ද සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාසව තනි කරලා ඔබතුමා ඡන්ද සටනෙන් අයින් වුණා කියලා?
නෑ නෑ තනි.
No, it's not like that. Certain factions in his side had said that I was a liability to them.
ඒ කණ්ඩායමම කොටස් කියලා තිබුණා.
බිහි වෙන ආණ්ඩුව මොන වගේ වෙයිද ඇමතුමනි ඔබගේ අත්දැකීමුත් එක්ක හිතුවොත්?
මට නම්
I believe that the first fight of the government will begin with its cabinet. That is because it is the Prime Minister who has complete power to choose the ministers under the 19th Amendment. The President cannot reject any name proposed by the Prime Minister.
එතුමා නම් කරන්නේ කවුද? ඒක බැහැයි කියන්න ජනාධිපතිතුමාට බෑ මේ තත්ත්වයට.
මම කෙලින්ම ඔබතුමාගෙන් අහන්න. ඔබතුමා මේ ආරම්භ කරන්නේ ඔබතුමාගේ ජනාධිපතිවරණ සටනද?
නෑ ජනා
No one starts a presidential election campaign 5 years before the election. If I can create at least a small change using the politics that I know, it would be a victory for me.
වෙනස් කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් ඒ මම ලබන ජයග්‍රහණයක් හැටියට මම හිතනවා.
ඔබට ජනාධිපති සිහිනයක් නැහැ.
අපිට තියෙනවා.
We have that. Anyone has it. However, simply dreaming of becoming president isn't enough. We need votes as well.
මංගල සමවීර ඇමතුමනි මට කියන්න ළඟදීම සමරවීර චරිතය කොතනින්ද නැගිටින්නේ?
මං ඉතින් දැන් නැගිටලා ඉන්නේ.
Former Minister Mervyn Silva, during his tenure as the organizer for the Kalani electorate, has intervened in several matters relating to land issues. The former minister, who is now in Anuradhapura, has resumed efforts to intervene in land-related matters once again.
Former Minister Mervyn Silva visited Anuradhapura today to inquire about an incident where a land allotted to a public ground in Chindraningama, Srivastipura, Anuradhapura was forcibly occupied.
මං ඉතින් ගොඩේ මිනිහා මට හොදලා පුරුදුයි මම රුහුණේ මිනිහානේ. ළමයි. ඒක දාන්න පැත්තකට සේරම කම්බි ටික ගලවන්න. ඔබ දාන්න පැත්තකට.
The former minister removed the steel mesh placed around the playground that was used to demarcate the area. Subsequently, a backhoe was used to prepare the playground.
I have learned that a very powerful politician is connected to this. Some have complained that I am distributing land forcefully. If I have to distribute land, I will do so. If I have to break the steel mesh demarcating the area, I will do so as well. If I have to clean the land, I will do that as well. There is a hotel located in a certain area, which is open for elephants to visit the premises. I have learned that a certain politician had obtained a bribe as well. Because of the elephants visiting the hotel, locals from all the nearby villages are facing several difficulties. My first step is to put an end to the human-elephant conflict in this area. I have not taken any bribes from anyone. I have not destroyed any forest and not engaged in any wrongdoings. After the 5th of August, I will set up this mesh.
18 cows have died after colliding with a tipper truck in the Paranathan main road in Kilinochchi.
On an ordinary day, cows can be seen roaming in the roads of the Kilinochchi district. Our correspondent reported that a herd of cows that had been roaming in this manner had collided with a tipper truck today. Police said that a tipper truck flying from Vishamadu that had been travelling at a high speed collided with the herd after losing control.
The Samagi Janabalawege organised a series of meetings in Kurunegala yesterday. During a meeting in Katugampula, the leader of the Samagi Janabalawege, Sajith Premadasa, expressed his views on the relief granted to people.
ජනාධිපතිවරණයේදී නොවැම්බර් 16 වෙනිදා අමුතුම චිත්‍රයක් පෙන්වලා තමයි මේ ජයග්‍රහණය ලැබුවේ.
During the presidential election on the 16th of November, they recorded a victory by portraying a strange figure. They said they would appoint a glorious and great government that has a backbone. A minister without a backbone in this government came forward and said that utility bills will be cancelled for March and April. Did they tell that or not? That was told on state television. No one can deny that. I wish to ask, are you happy with the bill for May? Did you receive the bill for May? Didn't they add up the charges for March and April? Didn't they impose a penalty? Didn't they say that the connection would be cut off if the bills are not settled on time? Are you happy now? Are you satisfied? They told lies and deceived the people. They are a government that cannot distribute 10,000 among the people. They are assuming that they will be able to please the people by offering 10,000. Everyone raises questions only when money is given to the people. When money goes into the pockets of the rulers, parliamentarians or the ministers, it seems that there is sufficient money. Meanwhile, the Samagi Jana Balawege also conducted a meeting in Siambala Gaskotuva yesterday. The Sri Lanka Pudujana Peramuna convened a Muslim conference in Kurunagala yesterday. Among those in my cabinet and the parliamentarians on my side, 28 of them were Muslims. I used to take Rishad with me wherever I went. I don't understand Tamil. However, as time passes, we begin to grasp any language. Afterwards, I used to take more powerful people. I couldn't understand what they said. However, I can now see the result of what they said. I can clearly say that there were Muslim leaders in our camp as well who destroyed the Muslims. There was an era like that. Now the country is going on a new journey. Gotabaya Rajapaksa won. I was the one who gave permission to broadcast the call for prayer through the radio 5 times a day. The United National Party and the Sri Lanka Freedom Party are now defunct. The opportunity has now come. A general election has arrived. We need a 2/3 majority to amend the constitution. We must change the constitution. Following views were expressed by Professor Sarath Vijayasuriya at a panel discussion organized by Nidahasa Movement.
අද මාධ්‍යවේදීන් පියටපත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම මාධ්‍ය ආයතන ජාතීන් අතර වෛරය පතු.
Journalists are living in fear now. Some media institutions are following an agenda that stirs racial tensions within our communities. They are asking for a 2/3 majority to abolish the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. If you abolish the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, there won't be a constitutional council. No independent commissions will operate. The president will gain the power to control the country as per his own whims and fancies. We saw how an official at the Swiss embassy faced a severe problem as soon as this government came into power. How did the media behave in that incident? When we take a look at all those incidents, 2 people were murdered on the streets. 1 person was beaten to death. We heard the news of another committing suicide in a high security zone. We have to view those 2 individuals as 2 very special people. One person worked very hard to bring the Yahapalne government into power. The other person revealed a massive financial scandal at Sri Lankan Airlines. Why did such a tragic fate befall 2 such people? Very powerful messages have been sent by these 2 incidents. A particular person was unable to be brought to Sri Lanka by the Good Governance government, even after several red notices were issued. But that person comes to the country as this government comes into power. Bail was granted to him immediately. Now he shares the political stage with this government. What is he saying now? He claims that he is a free and powerful man right now. Now we can imagine as to what fate will befall on the court proceedings.
එතකොට අපිට හිතා ගන්නට පුළුවන් මේ අධිකරණ ක්‍රියාමාර්ගවලට අත්වන ඉරණම කුමක් විය හැකිද කියලා.
We have more news in store for you, but first a quick commercial break.
Playing this weekend on Yes 101.
The Weekend Top 30 with Hollywood Hamilton.
What's up? It's Hollywood Hamilton. You know what we do around here. It's the fastest moving countdown in America. Some of the biggest names in the industry in the studio.
Hi, I'm Ariana Grande.
This is Drake.
This is Lady Gaga.
Backstage with us and on the WT30 hotline. I'll catch you this weekend for the Weekend Top 30.
The Weekend Top 30 with Hollywood Hamilton on Yes 101.
A suspect who was arrested for shooting a dog to death in Vaunia has been released on bail.
A dog was shot dead in Settikulam, Vaunia last Thursday. Yesterday, police arrested a suspect who is believed to have carried out the shooting. The dog had been shot after he'd entered the house of the Grama Sevaka of the area. It had died at its owner's residence. The suspect has been produced before the Vaunia Magistrate Court and was granted bail.
Many factions have raised concerns over the extension of restrictions on imports which were brought forward by the government in light of COVID-19. Issuing a statement, independent think tank Advocata points out that the import restrictions brought in by the government to defend rupee depreciation will further hamper Sri Lanka's growth prospects and will disadvantage businesses that rely on imported raw materials.
Advocata points out that local manufacturers have already started to experience the adverse effects of the import controls, including the increase in production, resulting in local products becoming uncompetitive in the local and international market. According to Advocata, the adverse effects of import restrictions will spill over onto the export sector as well. Further, the existing price stability in consumer goods will be affected and prices of domestic goods will increase when existing stock runs out. This will lead to a reduction in welfare, impacting lower income groups who rely on consumption and cheap substitutes for essential products in order to sustain themselves. Additionally, the currency situation is likely to continue worsening due to emphasis placed on consumer goods suspension instead of intermediate goods, which have more demand. Advocata urges the government to eliminate import controls on consumer goods and raw materials, as import restriction would distort production and raise the price of goods. Central bank officials stressed that lifting of such restrictions will depend on foreign exchange controls.
So I don't think we are in a position to comment when that would be lifted. That's government policy. Result of especially the exporters and some of the businesses, those who are doing domestic value addition, complaints that they have made a request. They have relaxed. The second circular is much more relaxed version of the original one, and also there's a committee appointed by the Treasury. Any industry, they find it difficult, and if they can justify that they can get that through credit basis, or if they can justify those are needed for value addition, for exports and other essential services like pharmaceuticals, the committee can consider and review.
Overall, it depends on the overall conditions, how the overall foreign exchange conditions develop over the time. There will be a case-by-case determination by the Treasury and the committees that have been appointed. So there won't be any difficulties for export-oriented industries to get their import permits.
We leave you tonight with the Nagitimu Sri Lanka song performed by the students of the Marapola Mahavidyalaya.
Nagitimu, Sri Lanka.